Hey y'all, hey, I'm JJ Conway, and I have got a special treat for you today. If you are on Camille's page, I'm going to introduce her in just a second, but I want to give a special quick pre-message to my audience today because most of my audience are church members, and we normally would be in church on a Sunday night. We would be having youth service. So I just kind of wanted to address that real quick. I don't make a practice of skipping church to do business, but this is a lesson that's going to bless both naturally and spiritually. Okay. And so you're going to get a lot out of it. And we had a big revival this weekend, and that's why we are not at church tonight. But let's go ahead and get that out of the way. And now I can introduce you somebody fantastic. So again, I'm JJ Conway, and I'm here with my good friend Camille Thomas. And I tell you what, we got a fantastic lesson for you today. This is a really great lesson that we're about to share with you because this lesson is an example of why people don't get the type of results that they really capable of. It's the kind of results that they could get if we just grasp our challenges instead of running away from them. And so I'm really excited to have you here today, Camille.
Thank you so much. And I think you hit it on the head because, more and more each day, I really believe that there aren't any rejects. There's no hopeless cases. In fact, it's really kind of completely the opposite, is everyone has all the potential they'll ever need. So potential is not their problem, but it's their attitude that determines how much of their potential is cultivated into skills and abilities. And then how many of those skills and abilities are turned into actions and then results. So it's not what we can do, but what will we do that really counts.
Mm-hmm.
And, all of us can go through this process of turning our potential into results, into the results that we want. But most people never learn how to do it effectively or decisively or purposefully. And so without even realize what they're doing, they end up living a life that they don't want to live on autopilot. They never realize that they have the world at their fingertips. And it really is such a shame because it's such a waste of talent and it's really a waste of a life.
It really is. And I think you hit the nail on the head there when you said autopilot, because most of the time people don't realize what they're doing to themselves. I know I sure didn't because it happens automatically. And so, one of the things that makes us different from all the other animals on the planet is that we've been gifted with this free will and we can choose. And you and I have talked about this before. And for me, it's huge. But, I think I was well into my 30s before I learned I had a choice. And having this free will means that in every moment we have that ability to choose what we're going to do and how we're going to respond, and not just what we're going to do, but we can choose who we are going to become.
Yes.
How many choices do we make every day and we're not even thinking, we're not even conscious of it? We're making these choices every moment, and some of them are conscious and many of them, most of them are unconscious. And the thing about it is, either way, we're not free from the consequences of those decisions.
You got that right, JJ. I was looking at a study that was recently conducted. Actually, it was a few years ago, but it was conducted by Cornell University. And it shows that we make about 35,000 remotely conscious decisions every single day. 35,000 every single day. And of course, every choice that we make, decision that we make, it carries a certain consequence with it. And those are both good and bad. And, it's that double-edged sword, the responsibility that goes along with that free will that we have. We are free to choose. That's absolutely correct. But we are not free from the consequences of our choices.
We are not free. I mean, America may be the land of the free, but we're not free from the consequences. And it's a responsibility for us. And so for me, the thing is, the choices we make, they're part of a decision-making process. And at some point, for most of us, that decision-making process stops being a point where we can make the best decision we can, because we're making the decisions out of the options that we perceive as available to us. And there comes a point where we have to decide whether or not to take a risk. Well, I made a comment earlier that I was well into my 30s before I even realized I had a choice about things. Well, I may have been making decisions. I may not have been conscious about those decisions, but it was still a decision-making process, which back then in my mind was, well, I'm just going to respond to whatever happens. And so for us today, the earlier in the process that we decide that we are now going to call that decision-making process taking risks, then the less successful that we are going to be when we call them risks instead of calling them choices and opportunities. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, it sounds a little bit harsh, but it's so true.
I am known for sounding harsh.
But it's true, right? And there's only one way out. There's only one way to avoid this automatic pitfall. And that's where we're going to look at, that's what we're going to look at in this lesson. How do you take that risk? How do you turn it on its head? And how do you use it to live a full life? How can you learn to be that conscious, that co-creator of your experiences? How can you stay in the thrill of living in the moment on the edge of your emerging future? I did a thing a while ago and it was emerging was the word, emerging. How can I live on the edge of that? Not dwelling in the fears of my past mistakes and misjudgments, none of those things, not letting them be projected onto my future, not being fearful of the future and blaming the evil others. How can I do that? But I really love this lesson. I really do. And if you're listening to this, I think you're going to love it too. It's really going to be a game changer for some of you because it's going to bring clarity in your life. It's going to bring clarity to your situations. And I know I needed that, as I was going through a little while ago, a few years ago. But I know that some of you are going to want to dig deeper into this. And we're going to show you a way for you to do that at the end. So keep listening, keep with us. And JJ, I'm going to turn it over to you so we can just go ahead and dig in.
All right, let's do that. Let's do that. As I'm thinking about this, I can hear all the voices of my childhood saying things like, be careful. You better know what you're getting yourself into. Because as soon as somebody says, I'm going to give you an opportunity, but I'm going to tell you right now, you need to shut down the voice that says better safe than sorry. And you don't want to end up like so-and-so and so-and-so chasing after their dreams. And what's another one they say sometimes? Like a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. And for us, it's like it seems like we just want to be safe and secure. And what's that other phrase about how it's our fears are like a dirty diaper. It's warm and it's comfortable and it's ours. But I think you and probably everybody else listening to this as well, we heard all these things like this growing up, things that were designed to keep us safe. And most of us, we didn't give them any thought. I know I didn't. We didn't give them any thought whatsoever. We just tucked them away without any conscious consideration of what the real meaning of these phrases are. And so then we're responding.
Yep, absolutely. And most of us weren't even able to give them any thought because we weren't able to think about, those things at that young of an age when we heard them. We were just toddlers and, all of those things were coming into us. We were just hearing them, accepting them, but we had no ability to accept or reject them. So, we couldn't challenge the ideas like we can as adults. Right now, I'm learning that I can challenge all of these things that keep coming up. But even if we could back then, we didn't challenge them because we trusted the people who were telling us those things. We always heard respect your elders. They know better. Don't talk back to your elders. Just
oh my goodness,
you heard it, JJ, right? And not heard.
And I'll tell you, I'm gonna tell you a story real quick. The first time that my son really challenged something, and I teach this stuff, and I was still putting limitation on him. We were driving down the street, and I was preparing him to move to Texas, and I was like, well, Texas boys, football's their life. They throw the ball all the way down the field. Don't get your hopes up that you're gonna be this or that. And he's like, but Mom, who's to say that I can't catch? I have great hands. Any coach would want me on their team. And who's to say that I'm not fast? I'm very fast. Any coach would want me on their team. And he was 13, and I thought he's at the age where he can challenge. Yes. But for many of us, these concepts were spoken to us, or at least in my case, growing up, shouted at us by people who were good meaning. They're good meaning, loving people. They had our best interest at heart most of the time. But that's what happens. And we're growing up making a decision according to it.
Yeah. And it's really natural. It's the most natural thing in the world. It's a loving parent, your mom, your dad, your grandma, whoever raised you, your uncle, your favorite teacher, your coach. And they're the ones that are sharing their life wisdom with us to help us, really to protect us and to keep us from harm. So,
yep.
It is very natural, and we don't second guess that. We don't question it.
We don't question it. And at the same time, because it's around about 12 or 13 when that age of reason begins to come and we're able to accept or reject thoughts. by then all of this is already poured into us, and we could really do nothing else but accept it. And I'm so thankful today that we're different. Like today we are empowered whether we realize it or not, so 15 years ago I was empowered even if I didn't realize it, right? And so,
Sure.
but before we blindly pass this wisdom on to our loved ones the way I was kind of doing in the car with my son that one day, like before we play out the rest of our life under the influence and the control of these early sound bites that become beliefs, maybe, just maybe, it would be a good idea to challenge that wisdom and to really think about whether or not it makes sense anymore, to think about whether or not it serves us today.
I mean, I have been doing a lot of that, as these thoughts are coming, I'm like, where are they coming from? And why am I still holding on to them? Are they true for me today? And so, like, really, if we're going to, use these kind of beliefs that have been given to us, as shortcuts in our thinking, to the degree that they determine our decision making and behavior, which they do, we have to admit that they do. Um, shouldn't we stop at least for a moment and really evaluate the truth and wisdom and the effectiveness of that thinking? That will, if you just don't check it, if you don't, when they come and you don't question it, leave it unchallenged, ultimately, it'll end up being a part of our learning model to decision making. It's not our fault, you know what I'm saying? It really isn't our fault that these things were imparted into us. But now that we become aware, now that we're older, now that we know that we have the choice to, it's our responsibility to check those beliefs and then replace them with new productive ones if they're not serving us. So we have to, as they come off, we have to take pause and we have to think about those and say, is this still serving me, or is this something that I need to let go?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's part of the process of really thinking about it. It's like thinking about our thinking and really considering where that wisdom came from in the first place. We got to ask ourselves, well, where did this originate? Where did it come from? From whom? Was it really their best thinking? Was it really the wisdom of that person that imparted it to us? Was it really our grandmothers, our mom and them, our father, our auntie, our uncles? Like, is it really their original thought based on their real life experience? Or what I'm discovering more and more as I begin to challenge these things, was it something that they too just kind of accepted as a way of conduct because somebody else of influence in their life shouted it at them?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've thought about this at one time, and we did a show before and it was called Hand Me Down Emotions.
Ooh.
It was those generational thoughts, those things that we just accept that they are because that's what was told to us, that have been passed down from generation to generation. But then I had to really stop, and we were asking a question: have you ever really thought about, like, where and when and how that generalized concept became so widely accepted, as a process of thinking for our family?
Mm-hmm.
So much so that it just goes unchecked and unchallenged, as though it's been given like thought immunity. That's what we call it, thought immunity for the
Mm-hmm.
rest of time for all future generations. But when I became aware of that, I was like, not for me. The buck stops here. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? The
Mm-hmm.
buck stops here. And as soon as that awareness kicked in, I had to start parenting my children different. So I didn't carry that on. But then again, most of those statements were probably passed on as a shortcut to parenting, an open dialogue on some of life's most important lessons. I remember my mom, JJ, I don't know if you had a mom like mine, but I remember my mom, when she got tired and she just needed some peace, she'd be like, y'all go outside and play until the lights came on. Come back on. Not those kids that had to run, when the lights are coming on. Nah, y'all stay out there until the lights come on. Don't come back in the house. I need to get some rest, some peace and quiet. She's probably on here watching right now.
If
Mom,
you are, hey,
forgive me.
Miss Jackie.
Hey. But I get it though, because I
Well,
mean,
that's
like,
what my mom was doing.
she was trying to get some peace and go outside and play, get all that energy out. Not only can she get that peace and quiet in that 3-4 hours that we were out there, but also we'd be tired out when we came back in, so she can get a little bit of extra rest. That's what I believe anyway. But anyway, I get it though, because try sitting down talking for 3 to 4 hours, trying to explain the concepts of decisions and consequences. That whole metaphor of better safe than sorry to like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 year olds.
That's
Just
so
sitting
true.
there trying to, decide. So I get it. I
I get
100%
it
get
too.
it.
And in fact, now I'm like, oh, now I know what my mom was doing. Not unlike when I finally give in and let my little one convince me to let him play video games.
Right.
But I mean, but that's expected at that age. We're not going to say things and explain things, but at some point we have to be aware of what we're doing. I mean, it's like being at home with it's being at home with the kids. My son wants to go to the pool. Cubby loves to swim, and you try to get stuff done, and they're like, "Can we go out and swim?" And I'm busy, and I don't, and I'm not going to let you know. This is a different day and age than when I was a kid. My mom would kick us out, my dad would kick us out, and we'd be out till the lights came on, and that was that was just how you play. But it's a different world today, so I'm not going to take them down there. And I look at, I'm like, no, it looks like it's gonna be rain. It looks like it's gonna be a storm. Now you know that storm may be way all the way over there. But
Clouds
I'm
is
gonna be like,
coming though.
I see a storm cloud. And Cubby is a smart kid. He don't miss a beat. He'll be like, it's not raining. And I'm like, well, there might be lightning. You can't go in the pool if there might be a storm because lightning's dangerous, right? And so even as you're hearing us talk, ask yourself about how easy is it for that child to accept that clouds are dangerous or that you can't swim when it's cloudy because lightning might get you. And you're not trying to impart anything. And that's what I really want to get across today. Some of the things that are holding us back today may have been falsely imparted to us, and it wasn't even out of people's ill intent. It's just so easy to soak this up.
Absolutely. It really was, that better safe than sorry concept really was like, it's meant to prevent us from hurting ourselves or killing ourselves or somebody else. You know what I mean? And I know that was one of the main reasons that my parents, used to say that to me. And the main reason that it was programmed was so that I was extra careful just in case, when I was a little girl, I don't know about you, JJ, but I was like complete tomboy. Okay. Complete tomboy. I was into everything. I was jumping off of roofs. I was climbing up walls in the garage and flipping on mattresses and all kinds of stuff like that. That's just how I'm wired. Right. So my parents used to always try to warn me about it. Like, be careful. Don't do this. Better safe than sorry. You don't want to get into this just in case this might happen. Even crossing the street. Sure to be better safe than sorry. When I was deciding to jump off the roof in the back of the house onto the mattresses with my cousins and my uncles and them, better safe than sorry. I don't know how safe that was. Maybe it was when we were, scouring the neighborhood, climbing those trees. It was easy to climb up there, and it's like better safe than sorry. But what happened one time, I remember, was I climbed up that tree. It didn't seem so scary as you're going up until you turn around and you look down. And you're like, ooh, maybe my mama was onto something. Maybe better safe than sorry. That jump down just seems so much more dangerous than that climb up. So yes, it is better to be safe than sorry in those circumstances. And I really believe that those were the times and the conditions and the circumstances when my mom or my grandmother, my aunts, uncles, my father really wanted me to operate from the learning model of it's better safe than sorry. But the problem is they never really explained to me that this strategy, the rule of thumb for decision making, had limits. It was always just better safe than sorry, And in fact, if I use it as a strategy for making all of my quote unquote risky decisions, it could and would lead me down to a path exactly opposite of its original intention, which was to protect me and to keep me safe, right? But it actually kind of hurt me. It could, hurt me, hold me back, jeopardize my future more so than any outside condition or circumstances that they wanted to protect me from. And oftentimes it really did, because that whole idea of better safe than sorry really stopped me from moving forward in a lot of areas of my life.
And the key things to remember is this: we're not playing no blame game here. It wasn't like this stuff was intended to hold us back. It was to keep us safe. It was to keep us. It was to help us grow up and become an adult and actually make it to adulthood. And so, but life happens, and we never go back to loop back. We never loop back to explain these things. And for many of us, we've lived these lives under these mantras. Better safe than sorry. Bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, But what we have to know now is that we have the gift of discernment, and we have to use it. We need to use it occasionally. One of the things that I discovered in, especially going through the ministries, that the gift of discernment is really the gift of observation. Yes. When you have the gift of discernment, you see more, and you see more before. And I think about the decisions that I made that defy logic, like logic is such as spending money on mentoring, or even a class like this when I was working 3 jobs just to survive and sleeping in my car. Right. But something in my spirit said, do it. And that discernment pushed me where logic would have said, better safe than
Mhm.
sorry. I didn't understand. I really do believe there's a spiritual component to discernment. I didn't really understand what I was observing, but all that subconscious information taking in combined with the spirit was pushing me to go where the logic was like, I don't know about all that. And now I can look back on it and I can say, that mentoring opened so many doors of opportunity worth thousands for me. So
Yes.
what was good logic in one situation or circumstance could be bad logic or risky in another. And it's like moths and electric. Like I thought it was funny when Paul gave this example. Paul Martinelli. He said, when the lights are stars millions of light years away, you can use them for navigating. You can figure out where you're at, figure out where you're going based on the stars, right? But when the lights are electric lights 10 foot away and you try to use them, you just end up spiraling into them, like you see the moths doing, right? And so logic that works in one scenario can become deadly in
Yes.
another. And it's really especially so when we never stop to think about challenging our beliefs. So I want to encourage everybody today to really think about where my beliefs around risk taking come from. Was that reliable, and does it still work?
Absolutely. And JJ, another thing to consider is, am I using the strategy for one type of risk for all of the different types of risks? When
Mm-hmm,
was the last
mm-hmm.
time I really sat down and evaluated my performance and thought processes around the topic of risk taking? And then, evaluated all the beliefs that support and drive that process. But I can tell you like this, if you're at all like me, before I came into this new awareness, I didn't. I never took the time to really sit down and evaluate, which is a reflection. Evaluation is so, so important in moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
But it never even occurred to me that I had a strategy for, this process to evaluate. And then therein lies one of the biggest problems we all face. And that really is that lack of awareness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
Yeah,
Michael Beckwith said that choice is a function of awareness. And the awareness for me is the biggest key because I didn't know what I didn't know. And
absolutely.
so there's that saying that how you do everything is how you do anything, and how you do anything is how you do everything. And how we do things is part of our learning model. It's our learning model, and it's unique to us. It's unique to us, and it comes from our beliefs and our level of awareness. So even down to the basics, like how you get dressed, how you eat, how you answer the phone. I mean, we don't stop to think about these things, but just try switching up your hands and you'll become aware of how much of what you do is very much automatic and an autopilot, like driving your car. The way we walk our dog, raise our children, interact with our family, everything comes from this learning model, this programmed process. And so I'm going to encourage you today, if you don't like the results you're getting, it's time to tweezer apart that learning model and identify the beliefs that are holding that learning model together, expand our awareness of
Yes.
our potential to create new beliefs and a new life beyond what we have now. And then we got to identify principles within the new model that we have to master to create the life you want. And then we got to actually get to work on it.
That part, we have to get to work on it. We could talk about it all we want to, but if we're not actually working on it, then what good does it do us? It doesn't change anything, right? So, but we're really teaching it, and we're sharing this with you. Sharing with you what we've come to believe and to know to be true for our lives. I know, especially for my life. I know JJ, she's a walking testimony as well. And for literally thousands of other people's lives, that the principles within the these are the principles within the learning model of achievement, that we're sharing with you here today. So I really do encourage you to experiment with this and observe what happens, to enter purposefully and intentionally into
Yes.
this place of self-evaluation. And sometimes when we do some self-evaluation, we don't always like what we see, like what's
Ooh.
revealed to us, but it is so necessary for the process. And that will really, when we're honest with ourselves about who we are, it really begins to challenge some of the thinking that we may have just openly accepted and adopted as our own. When in fact, at the time you lacked your own awareness to evaluate and fully understand the importance and the consequences of doing so. I remember, I'm gonna tell you the story real quick. I remember when I was, going through a divorce and things like that. And I purposefully and intentionally took the time to really do some self-evaluation. And I talked, it was just simple beliefs, what I liked and what I didn't. that has such a profound effect on my
Mhm.
life that when I said, why do I like this? Why am I
Yeah.
doing this?
Yeah.
Why am I accepted? Where did it come from? When I rejected all of that stuff, those beliefs, those likes, dislikes, those things that were taking up my time and my energy, I had so much more time
Mhm.
to focus
Mhm.
on me and what I really enjoyed and what I really in my, really liked in life and in my purpose and everything else. So it's really, really important that you, like I said, intentionally and purposefully take that time to do that self evaluation. So anyway, we're going to talk about some, and look at some of the beliefs around risk taking. So look back at some of the beliefs that you have from risk taking and then from not taking risks. And this
Mhm.
is that process that I was talking about that I had to go through. Examining your thinking, that thinking process around risk taking. I was very, very, very risk adverse. Very risk adverse. I'd rather
Mhm.
have that little bit than put that into something and have the potential to grow. But I think it's really, really important that you guys buy into the idea that I'm trying to share with you and then begin to allow it to become a belief in your learning model around risk taking. And here's what that idea is: it's necessary to take risks to grow. It's
Mhm.
necessary. And this is so important. Like,
Yes.
it's so important that you fully accept and believe that it's necessary. In fact, it's a very good thing to take actions that the world has defined as a risk. Not a lot of people are going to do that. Okay. So if you want to grow and you want to create a life beyond what you currently have, you have to take those risks. So the key question really is: are you willing to define or label your actions of moving forward and growing as taking risks? I'm going to say that one more time. Are
Yes.
you willing to define or label your actions of moving forward and growing as taking risks? And then Webster defines risk this way: it's the exposure to the chance of injury or loss, a hazard, or a dangerous chance. And that's, in the noun sense of it. And then here's something else that you guys can think about. Is there really, in fact, thinking about that definition, is there really any thing, a fact, such as taking a risk?
Ooh. Ooh, that's a good question. Is there anything that really is taking a
A risk.
risk? Because
Yeah.
as I hear you talk about this, I realize that there is a a distinction between risk and decision. And so when we look about that definition, what you're providing, life really isn't risky. We know how it turns out. I mean, this is going to sound kind of morbid, but in the end, nobody gets out alive. now,
No.
now, now, your faith may have a certain idea of what happens after you die, or translated or whatever. But none of us get out alive in this body and in this form, right? Life is exposure to the chance of injury or loss. That's walking down the street.
Yes.
That's going to Walmart. Now, it may be more exposure at 2 in the morning than it is at 10 in the morning. But does that mean life is a risk, or does that mean life is life? And if we put our whole life on the one-time spin of a coin, well, okay, that's going to be risky because there's a 50-50 chance, right? 50% chance that it's not going to end well for you. That's a big risk. But most of our life is not a single spin, is it? It's spin after spin
Yes.
after spin. There's always another spin. And there's benefits to some spins and there's consequences to others, but there's always more spins. There's always more. And because there's always another spin, then whether you're going to be successful or not is going to be based on two things: the chance of winning and what you get when you win. And I like this example. Now, I am not, now y'all know me as a person of faith, and I'm not going to judge. I'm no judging, no judging anybody here. But I am not going to be. I'm not a person to gamble because I like my money. I like to have my money. I like to keep it in my pocket. All right. But let's just think about this for a second. If it costs you $10 to buy a ticket and you win roughly half the time, but when you win, you only get $1 back. Well, if you keep playing spin after spin after spin, you keep entering that raffle, you keep doing that fundraiser, it's not a risk that you might lose everything. It's absolutely mathematically certain, right? It's just a matter of time. You keep doing that, you're going to lose. It's going to keep getting worse and worse. You might win once, you might win twice, but overall it's going to lose. But let's change the terms a little bit. If you get $50 back when you win, and you keep playing, well, it's an absolute mathematical certainty that you're going to be rich eventually. It's just a matter of time. It'll get better and better and better. And so I don't necessarily like that example, but I think about it so clearly because it's a we can see the math. We can see the numbers. And in life, because we have the opportunity to learn and grow every time we spin, we get better at learning the rules. And so it's not really a risk. In fact, perhaps it's a growth process.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'm learning in this thing. I've learned in this thing that sometimes it is a good thing to create our own definition of words and not just blindly accept what somebody else says, because it's the same with failure. We can define failure however we want, but what constitutes failure for one does not have to constitute failure for all.
Say that. Say that, JJ. Okay. Because your failure is not mine. All right. I always say it's only failure if you give up. You know
That's
what I
right.
mean? But if you keep going and you learn a lesson, it's that process, because failure is only failure if it's final.
If it's
As
final.
long as I got breath in my body, it's not final.
That's right. That's right. Now, look, let's just be clear here. Now, we're not talking about bungee jumping. We're not talking about wrestling alligators. We're not talking about riding a motorcycle 100 miles an hour with no hands on the handlebars. Okay. That's not the kind of risk taking behavior we're talking about.
Right. Not that, because, life or death activities may end up being single events, in which cases they are a risk. All right.
Yep.
If you're going to, say, for instance, climb Mount Everest or something like that, don't worry about the fact that 297 people have died trying. Don't worry about that. Don't even worry about the fact that some of their bodies are still up there. You know what I mean? But that's risky by most people's definition. And that's a healthy definition of risk. So there is a difference. So we're talking about risk taking or behavior as it relates to moving forward in our lives, deciding to break free from that pattern of thought, that pattern of belief, and that pattern of behavior, in favor of a new, unexplored, unexperienced path, to take us to a new result in our lives. So remember, you gotta remember that most of us were taught that all risks should be treated in the same way. And we're learning here that may not be the case. Okay. So in the example before, when we were talking about the better safe than sorry strategy, it's great for behavior where we can kill ourselves, but not so great when it comes to starting a new business or stepping out of our comfort zones to accept a new challenge, stepping out on faith for that thing that we want in our lives, something that can lead to a new possibility for us. So then if risk is defined as a chance for loss, I respectfully disagree. Again, I respectfully disagree. The only possible loss is the loss that which you don't want, your current results. I don't want to be in the same place that I'm in 10 years from now.
That's right.
I don't want to be that. I know they said there's a saying that says until the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change, then you'll be right where you are. That's a loss for me. And it's a loss that I'm not willing to take anymore.
That's right.
So if you invest in a new business so you can have a more fulfilled life, a better life, an income for your family, you really lose nothing if you enter into that behavior with a purpose and a willingness to learn from whatever feedback you gain from the process. What are you learning? It's only failure if it's final. You always can learn something in that process. So I know I might lose money, and truth be told, JJ, I've lost a lot of money. Okay.
You and me both.
But, I had to think about it. And I said, yes, monetarily, I might have lost some money, but what did I gain? I gained experience. I gained knowledge. I gained connections. I gained opportunities, and we can't discount those either. That's because all of that is part of the process. It's kind of like college tuition. It's a trade of money for experience and knowledge. So trading money for experience and knowledge is really normal to me. I've been to college. I had to pay those things. I had to pay a couple classes back. When life gets a little bit hard, I might have had to pay the money, not for the experience or knowledge, but it's okay. I learned something in the process. I got a different kind of knowledge, right? So that's become a part of my life. That's become very normal to me. But no one's going to tell the entrepreneur that going to college was risky, So what's really the difference?
That's right. Really,
if you think about it, what's the difference?
What's the difference? And that's the thing. That's where we're shifting our mindset, is to realize that a lot of these things that we have felt have risky, they're actually not risky. It's life. And so then we want to ask ourselves, okay, well, what is it that we want to achieve? Because that's important as well. And I think all of us here would agree that we're here to do something bigger in the world. And it's not just about having more things with this type of risk taking behavior, right? It's about serving a higher purpose.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love that. It's about, like, we always hear that purpose driven life, that purpose driven behavior.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about the outcome, it's about that purpose driven behavior. It's about saying yes to an inspired impulse. And I have a lot of those. When people didn't understand what I was doing, they'd be like, I just have this impulse to do something different. And people will say, oh, you shouldn't, that whole, better safe than sorry thing again.
Mm-hmm.
But it's acting on that, saying yes to the possibility, saying yes to that thing that's just seeking to be born. We always hear that, expression, JJ. I'm sure you've heard it a lot in church, but you're pregnant with possibility. That thing that wants to be born, that thing that wants to come forth, saying yes to that thing that's emerging from your soul. It's not about the outcome. It's not about the outcome. It's about saying yes to the impulse. So then we align our thoughts and our ideas, our actions that allow us to make the biggest difference in the world. And I assure you, there's no risk in that at all. Okay, none at all. There's no loss, there's no injury, there's no chance, there's no hazard, there's no danger. It's that thing seeking to be born.
Mm-hmm.
All there is just a continuum of our soul seeking a fuller expression and expansion. But if we blindly accept and adopt the blanket common wisdom and definition of risk taking, that one that we talked about, we become very regimented in our old beliefs. And if we take or follow that continuum, we find ourselves living in a comfort zone between the two stop signs. Okay.
Oh, 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 oh.
I'm tell you about these two stop signs. On one end, the sign is that sign that prevents us from falling backwards that we were talking about. That one that says, hey, we're trying to protect you. We're trying to make sure you don't harm yourself or others, and that's most definitely a good thing, right? We already talked about that. But then at the other end, posted at that leading edge of our highest good, which most people would define as the territory of better safe than sorry, is the other self-imposed stop sign.
Self-imposed. I think that's
Self-imposed.
important because the comfort zone holds so many of us back. And I think we really have to question it. I think we have to ask ourselves, are we truly better off? Is that comfort zone really that comfy? Is it really free from risk? John F. Kennedy said there are costs and risks to a program of action, but they are far less than the long range risks and costs of comfortable inaction. And I
That's
think
good.
so many of us have our lives hindered by comfortable inaction, thinking it's risk free, thinking it's better safe than sorry, thinking this is a protective mode, but it's actually not risk free. Like you were saying earlier, your dreams and your future and your purpose and your calling and all of that is at risk. So it's actually more risky to stay in that comfort zone than we think.
Absolutely.
Earl Nightingale said that most people tiptoe through life hoping to make it safely to death. And on one hand, that's kind of funny, but it's actually kind of true. And if you think about it, it's actually not funny at all because it's really, really sad that so many of us are living lives trying to make it safely through death to death instead of getting to be all that we have been designed to be.
Oh, that just pains my heart. It is funny, but it is not. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it makes you really think, like, are we really truly safer staying where we are comfortable? You know what I mean? And are we truly safer saying no to that which is seeking fuller expression and expansion through us?
Right.
It's hard for me to believe that that's so. I don't think so. And I think
Mm-mm.
that very real hallucination around risk taking, that most people operate from, is that there is a lack of resources within them. And I
Mm-hmm.
think this is huge, that people really believe that there's a lack of resources within them. But as we said earlier, we have everything that we need in us already. The hallucination is that they're in some way incomplete. And I'm going to reiterate yet another time that we have everything that we need in us.
Yes.
And it is, in fact, impossible for us to perceive a future action as a risk until and unless We have the vision of a future of ourselves without the resources necessary to accomplish that, which is emerging from my spirit. So the moment that I say, I can't have it, it won't be. But the moment that I understand that I possess everything that I need for this vision to come to fruition,
Mm-hmm.
then that, when my soul says that it's coming, I know
Mm-hmm.
that I'm fully resourced to bring that
Yes.
about. So yes.
Yes, and that was something I am almost embarrassed to admit. I think I was in the ministry for a good 15 years before I came to the point of realizing that it really doesn't matter if I have it in hand, if I see how it's going to happen or not. Because,
Yes.
it's so key to realize that the only reason we feel like we can't is because we're seeing this vision of us not being able. But
Not
whether
being
you want to start a business or write a book or walk into, any adventure, any business venture, anything that's worth doing, you gotta bet on yourself, and you've got to trust in yourself, and you've got to trust in the one who called you and equipped you. In
yes.
fact, I feel like, when we really come to this, when we really come to understand that we have been called to do a great work and we have been fully resourced and equipped to do it, even if I don't have it in hand, it's there. It'll be there when I need it. The money will be there when I need it. The people will be there when I need it. Even this fall, I'm entering into campus ministry, and I'm like, I don't know anything about no campus ministry. I don't even connect well with kids because I'm like, stay out of sin, and that doesn't connect very well. Nobody wants to hear that. Not when you just got out away from your parents' house and you off in college, right? But I go to this revival I go to this revival this past weekend, and there's somebody there who wrote the manual for my church on campus ministry. I had no idea. But so it's impossible for us to perceive a future action as a risk, like you said, unless we have this vision of us without the resources. But when we know that we have the resources to
Yes.
accomplish whatever is emerging from our spirit, then it's not risk. It wasn't risk for me to call up the college and say, okay, I want to do some gospel tailgates. There's no risk in that because I knew that I was fully resourced, and I didn't know. I've been knowing this lady for 20 years. I didn't know she wrote this manual. I didn't even know the church had the manual. But the resource was there, and when I needed it, it popped up. And so in this risk thinking model, this model based on a belief of our imperfection, it's a model based on us being incomplete, it's a model based on us feeling inadequate. And so then what happens is we try mentally to go and imagine this place beyond that stop sign that you mentioned, and we see that it looks like our resources disappear. Well, then we're going to think the thoughts that support that belief, and we define that as risk.
Yes.
Now this is a very natural build in us. It's the job of our ego. That's the job of our protector part, right? Like the ego is what protects us, right? It's always trying to make sure we don't mess things up, right? And that ego is trying to make sure that we survive, that we continue on and on and on. Survival, it's just the way our biology is made, right? But I'm telling you today, there's really no such thing as risk in your life if you're operating from this awareness of your true perfection in Him.
Yes.
There's no such thing as risk if you're operating with the awareness of your true connection to God and the source of all things. Oh, let me say that again because it
Say it
makes
one
my
more
soul happy.
time.
There's no such thing as risk. It's not risky if you're operating with the awareness of your true connection with God and the source of all things, who has sourced you to do all things,
Yes.
especially when those things are in alignment with your purpose and they're emerging from your heart of hearts and the spirit and the true essence of who you are and what you are. Oh my goodness. See, then you could not even let me tell you something. You couldn't even have the awareness of this greater desire without having been given the capacity to co-create it
Yes.
with and through you. I wouldn't have been given the idea for campus ministry. That's never been my thing. Love young people, care about young people, don't connect up until now, haven't connected well with young people. So I always gave money to support young people, but that was their thing. That wasn't my thing. It isn't given to you. It doesn't come to your awareness if you're not going to be equipped and fully resourced to accomplish all of it. The risk, like you said earlier, I like how you use this word. You said it was a hallucination.
Yes.
And that's really where that conflict exists. Is that conflict between this programmed, ego-centered, logical side of us, and then that spiritual part that's willing to have an expectation of amazement,
Yes.
to be open to having the opportunity show up, even out of left field. That willingness to hold the space
Mm.
in which this or something even better can emerge. And I get so excited because I remember a time where it was really hard for me. And I think it's hard for many personalities because it's at odds with our logical side, which sees all this as risk.
Absolutely. And you got to remember that that logical side, it always wants to be right. And it wants to keep us right where we are. And it's almost always referencing, from our past experiences and our past results. And this amazing part is always holding that space to be present to the emerging future. And if we buy into this logical side, this is where like the rigidity in our thinking and beliefs, it just sets in. We can't see past that. We can't go past that. And then we commit ourselves to not allowing something new to emerge. We stop ourselves. We hold ourselves back. And that's just, we have to let that thing go.
Because in doing that,
Mm-hmm.
now we're running the greatest risk of all.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not living into and from our fullness, perfection, and possibility. And
Yes.
because of that, we let a lot of opportunities pass us by. And there's this concept that a lot of us as human beings, we're drawn towards this concept of ease and balance, and we all desire this and we're seeking it for our lives. But what we don't realize is that we don't get all of that until we reconcile this conflict between those two parts of us. And so when we're feeling this sense of pressure or frustration, or when we're feeling a lack of security
Mm.
or a lack of potential resource in the future, then that's a call for us to pause. It's a stop, it's a signpost, it's a sign to pause for a moment, go back inside, get down in prayer, see this new resource that's within us, and just kind of hold it in silence. And think of all the opposition that's rising up in us and ask ourselves what's truth.
Mm.
What's the truth, and what's the very next step that needs to take place. Martin Luther King said, take the first step in faith. You don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step. And the answer will always be, and always, it will always be there for you. See, it's not only risky when we're in our head thinking, oh, there's not going to be enough, there's not going to be a resource, I don't know how I'm going to do this, I don't know how I'm going to connect, I don't know where the money's coming from. And if there's this feeling of tension, well, that's where we have to go. It's an opportunity for us to go and find out what the source of it is, for us to challenge, like we were talking about in the beginning, so that we can, in a positive way, be responsible to the communication that's trying to come through us. So when I'm all in my feels about, I feel like the Lord has called me to college ministry, but I don't have any college kids. I don't know anybody at that college. I don't. I teach this stuff, and I'm coming up with all the excuses. Right? I'm like blah 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 blah, and that's the time for me to say, okay, why am I challenging this idea? I
Yes.
even teach and coach people. I get paid good money to coach people that the idea wouldn't come to you if you weren't fully resourced to accomplish it. So what is going on here? And then I can go in there and I can hold it and say, okay, what's going on here?
Yes.
What's really going on here? And what's my next step to be responsible to this, to really test it out and see?
Yeah. And I think that after all of this, thinking back, when I first read that the risk was a myth, that it wasn't true, or in the sense that we define it in the Merriam Webster or the Oxford Dictionary or whatever, I really thought it was ridiculous. Like, there's not a myth of risk. It's risks, and all these things. I got to be better safe than sorry. I got to save this. I can't put too much into this. But actually, the more you think about it, there really is no such thing as risk. I mean, you said it before. We walk outside, we wake up, even closing our eyes at night is a risk, but it's one that we're willing to take. So is it really a risk?
Is it really a risk, especially if we're connected to the one who has resourced us to do all that we've called to do? All right, so let's look at this. Let's look at this and kind of summarize for today. So as we go through life, we've talked about how we learn and we grow. We accumulate beliefs about ourselves, the world, and everyone in it. And most of these beliefs come from other people, and they limit our awareness. And the unfortunate part is many of these beliefs came to us, were placed upon us, were shouted at us, were imparted to us before we were even old enough to consciously choose to accept or reject them. And we've kind of set up in that framework, that standard American framework that and this is really, I say American, but it's really worldwide too. We set up this framework of risk. But when we stop and think about it and really analyze what's going on, we see that life is a wonderful series of decisions, and we all choose the best decision that we perceive available to us at the time. And our choices are a function of our awareness. So just understanding these concepts, seeing this list of things that I just summarized, that actually begins to open up our awareness and frees us from the illusion. It helps to change our perception. It helps to change our awareness. It helps to expand our awareness. Yes. And we begin to see more and more, and we begin to see more before, and our discernment increases, and our trust and our faith increases. And then we realize that life is risky. It's not so much of a risk. It's a myth of risk that's been holding us back. So what I'm going to do now,
That was good. That was good.
All right. I'm going to give a challenge. I'm going to give a challenge because I feel like this. I feel like, is that Sunita there? I feel like Sunita says this is powerful information, and I want to encourage you all to do a challenge. I want you to contemplate this list. Let me go ahead and pull up where it's at here. You can go to jjclink.com/challenge, and it's going to give you the summary points that I just shared with you about how we all accumulate beliefs about ourselves, and how we make these, and most of these beliefs come from other people, and how the beliefs limit our awareness. Yes. But in life is really a wonderful series of decisions, but we're avoiding those decisions because of our awareness. And so we can make the best decisions available at the time, but to make better decisions, we need more awareness. So yes. I'm going to tell you right now, you go ahead for 7 days, read this list out loud, contemplate on them. I guarantee your perspective will change.
Absolutely. I love that, and I'll be joining you guys with the challenge. I've done a challenge, but I will be joining you guys again with this challenge, because it's so good. And Ramana Maharshi said, don't worry about changing the world, because the world you see doesn't even exist. It's a very convincing illusion. And we keep talking about these illusions and hallucinations. And it's not the world that needs to change, in us. It's our mind is the center of the divine operation that we hear about all the time. Our mind is creating that illusion. And until we learn to use our mind to help us and not hold us back, we'll continue to be seduced by the same illusion, those hallucinations. As a man thinketh, so shall he be.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, yeah. Mm-hmm. So let me ask you, how many of you out there resonate with this? Especially when we think about the fact that it's really a product of our mind. And as you just said, as a man thinketh. Oh my goodness. Yes. How many of you have seen that play out in your life? If you have, I want you to give us a little bit of love. We've been getting some good love on the likes and the loves there, but I want you to reach out and actually take action. That's a crazy sentence. Actually take action. I want you to take this challenge, because when we feel like we're stuck and we feel like every decision is risky, it's a function of our awareness, and it's time for our awareness to expand.
Yes.
All right. So me and Camille said earlier that we were going to show you a way to go deeper into this if you want to. And so, Camille, what I'd like to do, because we're almost out of time, is I want to give something special to the people who are live right now. And since you've gone out of your way to be here with us, you got out of your way to be with us. I really believe the only way to change our life for the better is to raise our level of awareness. I'm constantly putting myself in positions where I can raise my level of awareness, because your beliefs are limiting your awareness. My beliefs are, all of us, we have to put ourselves on a path of continually growth, and we have to learn how to use the mind to set us free, not keep us imprisoned.
Absolutely.
And so we have a process to do that. We're going to have a way to help you with the process to do that. I want to make you a very special offer today just for you, right? Why? Because you took the time out to be here with us today, and we appreciate you. Now, many of you know that we are launching Think and Grow Rich on September the 8th. It is an 8-week journey that will change your life if you allow it to. And so from now until 11:59, p.m. on September the 8th, you can buy lifetime access for the super early bird pricing of just $99. Okay. So now once the program begins, y'all know how I do. Y'all know how I do. And I'm pulling Camille into this because she's teaching it with me this year. This is going to be how she does too. Once the course starts and for the whole time that we're teaching, we're going to give a couple lessons for free, on our Wednesday and Thursday night broadcast. But if you want the juiciest bits, you're gonna have to register. You want to go ahead and get that for $99. When the course starts, it's gonna go up to $199, and then once we're done, boom, it's at the regular price of $497. And now I know some of you have done what I've done. You've said, I'll get to it later. I'll get to it later. I'll get to it later. And then later comes and you frantically tried. How many times have I frantically tried to get in at that price? Like I've left the web page up. So hopefully the page wouldn't time out. And when they switched it to full price, I could still get it. No, that doesn't always work. Now that has worked sometimes, but it's not going to work with this. I hate to break it to you. So I want you to go and do it now. I want you to go out to jjclink.com/TAGR, Think and Grow Rich. If you do it now, you're not going to miss the spectacular offer. I mean, come on, you're going to save $400, right? And so don't do it now. 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 I'll do it later. I'll do it later. I'll do it later. No, you and I both know you're going to miss out, and then you're going to pay more. And I don't want you to pay more. I want you to get the blessing.
Right now.
This is one of those things. This is one of the things that the Lord revealed to me when I was trying to get out of $800,000 of debt. That part of the reason we get now, I'm not saying something didn't happen. Something happened to end me up in that debt. But one of the biggest reasons that we keep hurting with money is we do not think strategically.
Yes.
And we think we can move things around, and we think we can do this and jerry rig that, and then it'll all work out at the end. And what ends up happening is we end up paying more. Yes. And I don't want you to miss out. Okay. So we're not going to do a hard sell today because I know that this is good content. And we've already had, I think we've got 13 people in the class now. And this is going to be a great deal for you. I want you to go down to jjclink.com/think and grow rich. We're going to start it up. You're going to get lifetime access to all of the lessons, include not only because we're going to post them on public. Like, look, we're not going to leave you hanging. Right. I don't know about Camille, but I remember where I came from. And I remember when I couldn't afford nothing. I remember when I couldn't afford their courses. But what I would do is I would be their affiliate. So I would sell other people into their courses so I could get in because I was broke. Right. But this, if you'll notice when you go to that challenge, there's a link under there. This isn't for everybody. This isn't for everybody. We don't want everybody in this class. We want the people who are willing to put forth the effort to make a difference in their lives. And we want people who are ready to be all that God has called them to be. All right. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be starting up Think and Grow Rich. We're going to do 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern, Wednesday night. Y'all know I normally teach on Thursday nights. For Camille's audience that's not familiar with me yet, I normally teach on Thursday nights. Been teaching on Thursday nights for like almost a decade now. But my son made the A team. And I've made him a promise. That boy been to 8 schools thanks to my military service. I made him a promise that when I retired, I was going to be in that front row at every game. And so we're going to honor that commitment. I'll still broadcast it as a replay Thursday nights, but you're going to find me and Camille live starting September the 8th. Every Wednesday night, 7:30 Central, 8:30, talking about how we can harness the power of our mind to begin getting rid of these limiting self-beliefs and start attracting into our lives everything that we have been called to have. Camille, do you have any final thoughts as we close out?
I just want to say thank you guys. It's been a pleasure. This is just a snippet of what's to come, and I'm really excited. I hope you guys are as excited as we are to get the content. We're excited to give it to you, all the things that we're learning and the ways that we're growing, over our particular journeys. We hope that you, jump on the bandwagon and you start your own journeys as well. So I just want to say thank you for your time, attention. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for just being here with us today. And I look forward to seeing you in that class. So yeah, thank you. Thank you, JJ. I appreciate you.
All right, y'all. Thanks again, Camille. This has been so much fun. For everybody watching, listening, after the fact or our live, thank you so much. Y'all take care and be blessed. Bye-bye.